Hello and welcome to the Porcelain Don channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing All Systems Red by Martha Wells. Hello! And as I said, today I'm going to be reviewing All Systems Red by Martha Wells. It's the first book in the Murderbot Diaries series. And unsurprisingly, I'm getting tired of saying this, I'm sure you're getting tired of hearing this. I knew next to nothing about this book going into it. It was sent to me by a friend of mine who really enjoyed it, who's also a big reader. The same friend who sent me Dune and Ship of Fools. So he has a 50-50 success rate up to here. But I just knew the name. I'd read about it on lists talking about, best recent books or best sci-fi books or best recent authors or things like that. And from the name Murderbot Diaries, I thought, I did have preconceived notions. I thought, oh, this is going to be, hard sci-fi with basically a murdering robot, And I was, my preconceived notions were wrong. This book takes place in a far future where the human diaspora has taken to the stars, and it doesn't really talk about the wider world, but the setting is different human planets are vying for control of different undiscovered planets for resources or for things like that. So this takes place with a survey team goes to a planet to survey it to see if there's anything useful about this planet. And they have a murder bot, a sec bot, a sec unit, a security robot, android cyborg. It's not really it's not that's not really clear. It's that I'm perhaps not really clear on. I think it's a cyborg, but then maybe a cyborg is an augmented human. So I think this was a robot with organic parts. Anyway, the prose of this book I found to be quite enjoyable. It wasn't very dense. It was a very quick read, but there were still flashes that I found very interesting to read. And I think Martha Wells has done a great job with this book. In terms of the tone especially, I think tonally this book is a breath of fresh air. And I'm not surprised that it's so successful, honestly, because there's numerous factors which make it appealing to different audiences. Like the fact that it's a quick read, quite a light read, means it's accessible to a lot of people. For example, I sent it to a friend of mine who's not a big reader. He reads detective novels, thrillers from time to time, especially when he's on holiday. And I thought this is the kind of book, not that this is anything like that, but it just has that sort of, it has a tone that he would like, because it's not too heavy, it's not too in-depth, but it is still enjoyable. And there is a slight mystery, and it's not super fast-paced, but it doesn't get weighed down by exposition or description or things like that. Not that that's terribly bad. It's just, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Different stories need different mediums or different styles of writing. And it's also good for people who read a lot of sci-fi, I think, because it's a new, not a new, but it's a tone that I don't often hear in sci-fi. It balances that fine line of being somewhat silly without being absurd. It has some ridiculousness. It has some very, very dry humor. It has some, it's mostly humorous, but without being a comedy book. It's really well balanced on the edge of that. And the humor is like I said, it is quite absurd because it's so dry. And I love absurdist comedy. I love Terry Pratchett, things like that. But too often it's done badly. And here it's done in a way that it doesn't impact or impinge the overall story, which I think is brilliantly balanced. Like on first look, you would say this book is quite simple, but I think there's certain little nuances that mean that it's really well constructed, really, really well constructed. Um, and I would recommend it to so many. I would recommend it to anyone. I would recommend it to non-readers. I would recommend it to sci-fi fans. Again, it's not the greatest book I've ever read, but it is a really great book, really fun. I'm definitely looking forward to reading the second one to see where it goes. I'm a bit sad with how it ended. No spoilers. Um, but yeah, the themes that were explored in this book give it a bit more depth, like what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be not human? What do we want from life? What do we deserve from life? How do we deserve to be treated? What are our obligations to the species? Things like that. They're not really dwelled upon, but they are thrown up, these questions. Um, so there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it to unpack if you want to, or if you just want to read it and have a good time, it's also there. Um, it is a sci-fi, but it doesn't dwell too much on. Yes, it is a robot and it is in space and things like that, but it's mostly the interpersonal relationships and the existential question of like, what am I and why am I here? And even though the medium is a robot, to give you that sort of detachment, it's a question that applies to everybody. And I think that the author, I'm not sure how old she is, I think she's 40s or 50s, but there's sort of an existential angst and anxiety to uh, uh, this protagonist, this robot, who I keep saying robot, but that's not quite accurate. This construct, I don't know. Um, anyway, this protagonist, he has this angst and anxiety and nervousness to him where he can't really look people in the eye. He doesn't like to be looked at. He just wants to be by himself. He's kind of sedentary. He likes to hide behind this robot thing and not show his true personality, etc., etc. And that must speak to a whole generation. I'm sort of a bit old, and maybe like the tail end, or maybe I'm like the front end of this generation. But so many people in the years following me, down to maybe 20 or so now, I feel like it's an epidemic of people who are anxious, who can't talk on the phone, who don't like to be looked at, who don't like crowds, who things like that. I think that is everywhere now, and the fact that this character in the book has that, it's so. I'm sure it's relatable to a whole generation. Like, oh my god, that's so me, or you can feel for his. Like when you can wince yourself almost when he is being, put on the spot, and you're like, oh, I don't like being put on the spot. So you can relate to it, and that sort of gives you an engagement with this character. I think it's really well done. There's a couple, like I said, a couple of little points that I think the author consciously puts in to give it a lot of hidden depth. Anyway, loved this book. Really enjoyed it. Thank you, Austin, for recommending it to me. One day I'm going to recommend you a book that you might like. Anyway, thank you so much for stopping by. I really hope you enjoyed this review. If you read it, comment down below. Let me know what you think of it. If you didn't like it, I would love to hear if there's people that didn't like it and what they didn't like about it. Because it just seems to me like a simple, good time. But if it's your favorite book, tell me why. If you've read the next ones, tell me how they compare without spoiling it. I like to go into it spoiler free. Anyway, like and subscribe. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I will speak to you on the next one. Bye bye.